Hi, I'm Nick and I like comics. Welcome to Imperius Arcs, where we cover story arcs and other comic-related tidbits to better inform and nerdify the world. I'm bringing you this episode by myself, as Adam is off doing whatever it is that red-headed people do in their spare time. Today I will be covering the seemingly overwhelming question of how do I get into comics? Why am I qualified to answer this question? Well, I do have a master's degree. No, seriously, I do. Plus, has a bearded person ever given bad advice? I started reading comics in the early 2012, shortly after DC's New 52 reboot. It was a fun and exciting decision, but totally daunting. So I will share with you my process of how I became the comic book nerd that I am today. Number 1, find a character that you like. Thanks to the wild success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Dark Knight trilogy, superheroes have become commonplace in our culture. It is almost impossible to go to the store or to get on the internet and not see something superhero related. We've had movies about the Avengers and television shows about the Green Arrow and the Flash, with many characters that hardcore comic book fans never thought they would see on the big screen or on TV. The point is, if you've never picked up a comic book in your life, there's a high probability that you have gravitated toward a character or two. For me, it was Batman. So when I decided to get into comics, I ignored everything else comic book related and only focused on stories that involved Batman. So, what character do you like? Number 2, the internet is your friend. Did you know that both Batman and Superman have recently celebrated 75th birthdays? The first issue of Fantastic Four was published in 1961, and a relatively new character, Deadpool, is almost 25 years old. What I'm trying to get at is this: there is a lot of comic book history. There have been thousands and thousands of issues published that only really focus on one character. Most people do not have the time nor the money to sit down and start reading an issue at number 1. Truthfully, what really helped me bridge the gap of where Batman started and where I was Wikipedia, DC Wikia, and later when I got into other characters, Marvel Wikia. All of these sites have character bios, breakdowns, and highlights of major stories. You can even find synopsis of specific comics and find out who the featured heroes and villains are, along with descriptions of what happens in the issue. Truthfully, that was hard for me to do. I'm the kind of guy that likes to start at the beginning with issue number 1, but that's not always possible. These Wikia sites have been really helpful. The internet is also helpful in figuring out reading order. Sometimes you have stories that cross over a few different titles. For example, Kraven's Last Hunt, a story where Kraven the Hunter decides to hunt down and kill Spider-Man, was spread across 3 titles: Web of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, and Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man. Without a reading order, it would be difficult to figure out what issue to read next. There are also events that happen in one book that heavily affect what happens in another book. For example, in Jonathan Hickman's run on the Fantastic Four, where he was jumping between his 2 titles, Fantastic Four and FF. So, thanks for your help, internets. Number 3, befriend a comic book nerd. To this day, the biggest help that I had in being a full-fledged comic book nerd were the people that I hung around with. Adam, my bearded co-host, really helped me out when I told him I was interested in reading Batman. He let me borrow trade paperback editions of The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One, 2 of the most influential Batman stories ever written. Another friend of mine shared with me his favorite writers, artists, and characters to help steer me in figuring out where I should jump on with Batman. So now you're ready to buy your first comic. Where do you begin? If you're interested in Marvel characters like Spider-Man, Deadpool, or Iron Man, I have some great news for you. In the fall of 2015, Marvel is doing a reboot and calling it their all-new, all-different universe. Somewhere between 40 and 60 new titles will all launch with new number 1s, a great jumping-on point. Also, a fantastic comic resource is the Marvel Unlimited app. On the app, you can read over 15,000 old comics, known as back issues, with new titles being added weekly. And it has comics dating back to the 1960s. If you are a person that wants to start at the beginning, this is an option for you, and at about $10 a month, it's pretty affordable. If you're a DC fan and interested in Batman, Superman, or Suicide Squad, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to get a hold of back issues. As of right now, DC has no unlimited app like Marvel, but they have a large library of digital issues in their DC Reader app. But at $1 to $3 an issue, it will be pretty pricey to get totally caught up if you want to start from the beginning. Thankfully, the New 52 reboot is about 4 years old, and many titles have less than 50 issues each. If you're not able to get caught up with a character from the beginning of the New 52, a lot of major titles have started new story arcs around issue number 40. To get back issues, purchasing them digitally is probably going to be the easiest way for you to go, though you might find some of those issues at local comic book shops. Please like our video and don't forget to subscribe. If you're really interested in getting into comics but you don't have a nerd you can befriend, comment below with your questions. You can also reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Until next time, I will be trying to figure out what it is that red-headed people do when they're not looking at comics.